I saw a very interesting piece of news today on Twitter that has to do with Chandler Jones, who is on the Las Vegas Raiders at the current moment. And it's got me thinking about a lot, right? The Colts have their own situation, Raiders have their own situations. And let me explain to you exactly why I'm thinking what I'm thinking before we get to what I'm thinking. Okay, Chandler Jones took to Instagram today to pretty much go off on the Raiders, put the Raiders on blast, the GM and the coach. And I'm not going to be able to say everything that he said, but I'll paraphrase for you here. So he said, I don't want to play for the Raiders if that's my head coach or GM. I want Patrick Graham. So what he's basically saying here is if the GM and the coach are who they are, like I don't want to play here anymore. If Patrick Graham isn't going to be the head coach, get me out of here, is what he's saying in that one. All right, then the next one here says, they won't let me in the building though. They're trying to provoke me. Again, I'm paraphrasing here. Like the fact that they won't even let him in the building, right? And when I say let him in the building, I'll kind of explain what I mean in this next thing that he's talking about. Because what we have here, it looks like text that he was sending to the GM of the Raiders. Okay, and at the very top it says, "That's not nice. Love you anyway." Then he goes on to talk about how do you expect me to play this season and I can't even get the GM on the phone? Should I call Josh or will he not pick up either? Then he asks, why'd y'all bring me to Vegas to play with me? Then, as you can see at the bottom, he says, I sent this to your roomie. And then the last text is, it's a shame that I'm a top athlete with 112 sacks in the NFL and I have to go to a local gym to work out during the season for no apparent reason. This is wild to me. Josh and you know it. You need to do what's right. And right there, like the fact that an NFL player, not just any NFL player, it's not like this is a practice squad player, right? This is Chandler Jones, like he mentioned in the text. That's 112 sacks in the NFL, and they won't even let him in the building, right? And then the last thing he ends up saying is talking about how the team has reached out to his baby mama, who he hasn't even been with for 5 years, doesn't really talk to like that, but they're reaching out to her talking about him. Okay, so a lot of stuff going on with Chandler Jones and the Las Vegas Raiders. And the reason that I wanted to bring that up is because they also have their own situation with Josh Jacobs, right? And we have our own little running back situation going on. So granted, the Raiders probably wouldn't want to get their own running back situation, but I think at the end of the day, if the Raiders need to get rid of Chandler Jones and the Colts need to upgrade their pass rush, here's the whole situation I'm thinking, okay? I think we can swap Chandler Jones, who doesn't want to be with the Raiders, for Samson Ebicom, who hasn't yet played a regular season down for the Colts. Okay, we just signed Samson Ebicom to a 3-year, $24 million contract. Okay, that means his average annual value is sitting at $8 million. When you look at Chandler Jones' contract, he's making $17 million a year. And this year is could end up being the last year of his contract. He has an out for the last 2 years of his contract. You know, with the way contracts work, he's going to be looking for an extension after this year, probably. But even still, he's making $17 million a year. So if we were to trade those guys, right? If you're talking trade those guys straight up, the Colts would be taking on an extra $5 million, at least in cap hit. He's making $17 million, Chandler Jones is, but his cap hit is just over $14 million. But also, Samson Ebicom's cap hit this year is just over 5 million. So I guess either way, it kind of evens out to be right around 9 million more dollars that the Colts would be taking on. Right. And then the added layer to this is the running backs, right? The Raiders have a guy that doesn't want to play for them. We have a guy that doesn't want to play for us, right? If that's true, Jonathan Taylor has a way out. Go ahead, goes Josh Jacobs. He's already making $10 million this year. He has his deal set. He's good to go. We could have Josh Jacobs. They can have Jonathan Taylor, and he could be ready to go for whenever, right? And when you talk about draft compensation, that would be in that trade. I honestly don't know if there'd be much for either side, right? Running back swaps, like we're giving them a better running back, but he's not going to be ready right away. Plus, they got to work out a deal with him. And we're taking Chandler Jones, who's a better edge rusher than Samson Ebicom, and he's worth more money, so we take on that contract. I feel like, for the most part, that trade kind of evens itself out. And I think it'd be a good move for the Colts, right? You would automatically get some more running back depth, which is what we need going into the season. And you have, the guy who just led the league in rushing yards last season. The Raiders get the guy who led the league in rushing yards the year before, right? So, I mean, it feels like all avenues would be happy if this trade happened. And if you can make this trade without giving up draft capital, I don't see why this wouldn't be a good move for the Colts, right? They have the cap room to be able to make this work right now and be able to make this work for this year. They can figure out whatever with Josh Jacobs or let Josh Jacobs go next year in free agency. They can do the same thing with Chandler Jones. Like, let these guys just go somewhere else and see what happens, right? That's where the Colts are right now, anyways. It's a little bit of a rebuild. So figure out, are these guys that we might be able to keep on the team while Anthony Richardson is on his rookie contract, or do we just bring these guys on this year, kind of tighten up our situation right now, get all the distractions out of the way, and go into the season with these guys and figure it out later, which feels like what they want to do anyways. All offseason, they've talked about how they just want to see how everybody reacts with the new coaches in the building and how everything shapes up before they start re-signing guys and bringing guys in that are going to be here long term. They want to figure some things out, and I think this is a good move to help continue on that process. Right? Again, you're getting some of the distractions and some of the noise out of the way. At that point, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're paying JT. It's, are we going to commit to Josh Jacobs, or do we let him go figure it out on his own? Right. And you bring a guy in Chandler Jones that year after year, no matter how old he is, he's producing in the NFL, and he can teach a lot of these young guys that are on the roster some good things, and he can be somebody that produces. Right. So I think it's a good move. I'd love to know what your opinion of it is. I know this would be, like a super blockbuster trade if you have Chandler Jones, Josh Jacobs, and JT all being involved in one trade, but I think it makes sense for both sides. So again, love to know what your opinion is. You let me know down in the comments section, and don't forget to subscribe with notifications on to continue to get notified of more Colts news. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.